Brussels erupted in quiet fury as EU leaders convened an emergency summit, only to face public condemnation from within. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico called the meeting unplanned, unprepared, and pointless, mocking it as simply a very expensive dinner in Brussels and accusing the bloc of strategic paralysis and incompetence.
Simply a very expensive dinner in Brussels. If I take into account the costs of the government's special flight and the lack of preparation, I would have 100 reasons to refuse such an international improvisation. But if I didn't go to Brussels, all the opposition experts in Slovakia would go crazy. That I ignore Brussels? Yes, in general, it is true that we should not ignore Brussels. But we should also not be victims of the European Union's incompetent leadership.
Fico targeted EU diplomacy, noting US Secretary of State Marco Rubio repeatedly refused to meet Callas. If the US won't even talk, what's the EU's purpose? He demanded, defending Slovakia's sovereign foreign policy.
We cannot have in the leadership of the European Union people whom the key global players do not meet with and do not seek to engage constructively. If the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio repeatedly refuses to meet with Kaja Kallas, not even to argue with her constructively, then what purpose does her service serve? From the deep crisis in which the EU finds itself, we can only emerge with new leadership and new ideas.
Hungarian PM Viktor Orban revealed a secret EU plan, approving Ukraine's full $800 billion demand and an extra $700 billion for military spending. No softening, no reduction, fully accepted, he said, calling it a bombshell for Europe.
The most significant stakes of the elections are in Ukraine outside of Hungary. Since this document I mentioned also states that Ukraine must join the European Union by 2027. So it's not just about the 800 billion or 700, but also talks about the accession date as well. And Hungary opposes this. So in my opinion, there won't be a parliament in Hungary in the next 100 years that would vote for the Ukrainians to join the European Union.
Orban rejected Ukraine's EU accession outright. No Hungarian parliament will ever approve Ukraine joining the EU, exposing cracks in European unity. The summit followed the Greenland Row and halted US tariffs after Trump's framework deal with NATO's Mark Rutte. Fico will now consult the OECD in Paris for economic alternatives, signaling deep EU distrust.